Oh yeah.
What? Holy
It's going
shit.
down, brother.
Hey, man. All right. Uh, I guess this will be the behind the scenes on the YouTube here in a minute. Holy cow, season two coming in hot. If you're on the YouTubes, then you're getting an early look. Jesse's running around his studio, but this is Rad Dad 2024 with Cromulent Jesse for the YouTube channel. Before we start the episode, I guess. What up, dog?
Oh, hey, man. I was running, so I had to take a sip of water there.
Hmm.
As I am a chubby man, any activity really just
Oh, he's gassed, folks.
hey, but what I was grabbing
Yeah.
was all my stuff, Marty.
Nice. Look at those.
We got a little look, you got a little Biff Tan in here for you. Uh,
Cinema's greatest villain.
yep. We got a little
Yeah,
don't worry,
Marty.
Marty. We have other outfits.
What are
And
you,
then I
a
got my
sailor?
DeLorean.
Oh, there you
Mhm.
go. Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
All right. Sorry. I wanted to share those so badly.
I have a feeling you're a fan, so that's what I'm excited about. All right. Let me kick on some Huey, Dewey, and Louie here.
I learned a fun fact about that song and that band just 5 minutes ago.
Really?
That
What?
that song for that movie
Mm-hmm.
was their very first number one hit,
Doesn't surprise me.
which is, I mean, it's an incredible song. That song should have been number one. It's just shocking that it was. I guess I wasn't around too much in the 80s, but like I look back and I'm like, Huey Lewis, that like, it just felt like chart toppers. And it's like, that was their very first number one hit. I was like,
I just
wow.
I just think it's funny that like, well, first of all, there's like one of those websites or legends of a website that has like all these groupies who talk about who has the greatest dong in rock and roll, and Huey Lewis is like at the top of that list. Which to me, I mean,
Good for him.
Will Sasso said it on a podcast where they're talking about greatest dongs, and he was just like, of course, he would be the guy. He's just like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna start a rock band and we're gonna do some fucking 50s doo-wop shit because I'm the man and I got, I'm packing a fucking T-Rex in my pants. And that's the
Even
power of
Patrick Bateman will like it.
yeah, right. Exactly. Oh, fuck. All right. Well, hey, season two coming in hot. One of my favorite guests of the show coming back hot and heavy. Cromula Jesse, how are you doing, my man?
I'm very well. Mostly heavy. Mostly
Oh,
heavy. Hey, listen, reality is fun and
hmm?
gravity exists for all of us.
Oh.
And
Gravity always wins. Well, speaking of gravity, uh, you're in this. Well, I guess that doesn't really speak to. Well, I'm 41 and gravity. I feel gravity every day now with my back, being a man and
sure.
working.
Mm-hmm.
But you've been working hard as well with your podcast and you do your Twitch streams. And I've been lucky enough to see some of them. Um, what else, what's kind of the recent haps with you, my friend?
Yeah, so I crossed the country. I'm a greenskeeper at the Greenville Country Club here in beautiful Greenville, South Carolina. It's a blast, man. I'm just having a ton of fun doing what you said. We're basically I work all day and I hang out with my kids until they fall asleep, and then I podcast and stream in the evenings.
And
Sleeps for bitches. I'll sleep when I'm dead, bro.
you just pass out like Marty with your butt in the air and your back up and wake up at one
Hey,
in the morning and run to the Twin Pines Mall to
there's a reason you can see the couch in my office behind me. Sometimes I don't even make it to the bedroom. I
I,
just sort of
yeah, just flail
just
yourself.
fall into the couch. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, it's a pleasure to have you, my dude. And we've talked extensively with the show. We do a history podcast here on the Zanzizi podcast, and we like to dive into everything. And this is a treat. And as you showed to the YouTube channel, check it out, Zanzizi podcast on the YouTubes. We are massive fans of Back to the Future. I I don't know, for me, and I'm quoting here one of my favorite podcast hosts, Andrew Jupin from the podcast We Hate Movies, specifically talked about this was the movie that introduced him to the magic of cinema. And as a little 3-year-old Ryan, I remember distinctly. I wasn't playing with Matchbox cars. I was staring at the awe of cinema with my little tot brain just blown away by this film. What got you into the Back to the Future movie and series and such?
100% my dad. So I have a little bit of younger parents. I come from a teenage parents. So
Mm-hmm.
my parents were, I was born in the late 80s. So I had teenage parents who saw this movie in 1985. So like
Wow.
my dad was relating with Marty McFly so hard, I have to imagine, like my dad for sure wore puffer vest at some point, and like I know that there's pictures of him doing it. So when I, same kind of the same thing. I grew up with around movies. I think that's why I love them so much. My grandpa and my dad both had very distinct styles. So when I'd be hanging out with my grandpa, which was a lot, it was like it was like horror films and sort of, I mean, like basically like psychological thrillers. So as a child, I'm like, what the fuck's going on? And he would go crazy because I'm like, what is that? Why is he doing that? Who's that? Why is that?
Mm-hmm.
And my dad liked much simpler stuff, like just the like you don't have to look for the meaning in it. And like Back to the Future is that, and westerns.
Oh,
So
totally.
lots of westerns, but Back to the Future was one of his favorites. And as well as anybody does, is by the mid 90s, you could basically like flip to TBS or USA or TNT on a Saturday afternoon, and this movie was gonna be on.
Totally.
And it was not a movie that ever, if we were flipping channels and this shit was on, we were watching it 100%.
Totally. And it's one of those movies that is just a joy in every. Oh, this is that scene. Oh, this is when,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and or this is when he
100%.
meets, meets his dad at the diner, or like
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Like, whoa, slow down right there. Did you guys see that? That's Billy Zane.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's got hair. Holy shit. He wishes he had a DeLorean.
That's
Um,
why no one sees him.
all right. But yeah, wow. No, totally. This movie was one of those movies that everybody had a VHS copy of. It was always playing around the holiday because everybody got into it. I mean, even grandma was like, "Hell, I'd like to go back to the future." Um,
I think that Emmett is sexy.
yeah. And now watching it, I'm like, yeah, Christopher Lloyd's a good-looking guy. Good. Why wasn't he in more movies? Like he's just amazing as
Right.
the titular Doc Emmett Brown. But like, so this movie also was definitely one of those movies where I remember distinctly identifying immediately with the protagonist. Like everything that he did was so cool to me. The skateboarding, I think there's a term for it when you grab onto the back of a vehicle and you're just
Yes,
fucking
sketching.
sketching, the
Yes.
sketching, I mean, I loved everything from, and I essentially lived in that opening sequence like my whole life, like just
Like trying to emulate that.
exactly. Even though he's got like a toothpick guitar, just like on little Michael J. Fox, I get it, but like that whole sequence was so cool to me, just getting blasted by some mad scientist like amplifier and like showing up late for school. I've been late my whole life, and like every single time I watch it, just warms the cockles of my heart. But
I do love his little tiny guitar, but
yes,
you've got the amp, so we're good.
right.
Can you
But
imagine if they had given Michael J. Fox like a blues hawk to hold? And it would,
he can't even stand up.
yeah.
Um,
All right, just go ahead and do some fake strums, Michael.
yeah. Ah, geez, I gotta get back to Family Ties, guys. But anyway, so Michael J. Fox, I mean, this is him becoming the biggest star in the planet, and rightfully so. I mean, he's incredible as this role. I think this is one of those things like Humphrey Bogart had Casablanca, but he had so many other movies. But like those type of iconic, just like immediately, like this is going to be forever. And when they show up on like
It's like
talk
what people
shows,
are gonna scream at you out on the streets later.
right?
Like, how
Like
many times does he get called Marty McFly?
of course, or
Yeah.
quotes from the movie, and like I don't know. For me, I can't think of something that this would be something I would cherish for my entire life, a role, you know. And thankfully, because they've been able to maintain the rights, like Zemeckis and Bob Gale with Back to the Future, there has been no remakes or
And they have promised us with their lives that there won't be. So as long
which
as they're living.
I and that's the thing is like, I mean, I don't this is one of those rare things. Like I'm wearing a Dune shirt, so I'm excited about the new Dune, which I just saw. It was excellent. But like um certain properties, they just knock it out of the park. I just can't
Yeah.
imagine. It's like I mean, we talk about like I'm kind of a cinema nerd. I love classic movies. I love new movies, but like sometimes they just like this to me is like the Mona Lisa or like the Sistine,
Well, right.
like
And
it's
that's
perfect.
that's my thought too, right? So like there's no reason to remake perfection.
Exactly.
It's the reason there isn't another Mona Lisa, but Jackson Pollock, great art.
Mm-hmm.
It's like rolling marbles in a box with some paint on it, right? Like lots of people have emulated that style and done it successfully because, like, yeah, there's something left to be desired in this, so I can do this. I love the original Pet Cemetery. When
Sure.
they said they
Yes.
were remaking it, I was like, fuck yeah, dude, let's go. And
Right.
they did great things with it. The first movie was great. Perfect, it was not.
Mm.
This, you're right, 100%. Why touch it? Who could, like, listen, you think Eric Stoltz wants to be Marty McFly still? He wants to give him a second chance?
I'm sure. I'm almost positive he would. That's got to be one that would. I mean, that would keep me up at night. Like Jesus Christ! Like I could have been in Van Halen. I could have been in fucking Back to the Future.
Well, really
Boy,
quickly, because I have a billion little like facts rolling around in my head. Because
totally.
earlier today, I was like, man, I've seen this movie, 36,219 times, but I watched like 107 things you should know. And
Mm-hmm.
the actress to
Mm-hmm.
to co-star with Michael J. Fox changed like three times because it was originally the woman who had actually played Jan Levinson Gould. I can't think of her name in The Office.
Oh,
Michael's, yeah, she was the original. Is Jane the original Michael J. Fox's girlfriend? Why can't I think of her name right now?
that you mean you're talking about in so in the original was Lorraine, or are you talking about Jennifer, his girlfriend?
Jennifer, yes. Why was Jane in my head? So the original Jennifer, when it was Eric Stoltz,
Mm-hmm.
because Eric Stoltz was taller, was the actress who played Jan Gould, Michael Scott's girlfriend in The Office.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was just a fun little fact. But when Michael J. Fox came on, he was far too short for her, so
Ah,
she was recast as well. So not only did Marty McFly get recast, but Jennifer was recast as well because of height differences. So
interesting.
just little fun little fact stuck in
I,
my head there.
I mean, there's a million, and we're gonna definitely
Oh,
dive into
yes.
them. So, if you're ever thought, man, my project will never get done, there's no way anybody will ever pick up my script about, a mom who's got the hots for his son. Don't worry, folks. Even if you try 100 times, maybe you'll make it to Pornhub. But like, look, here's the deal. Longtime collaborators Bob Gill and Robert Zemeckis conceived Back to the Future in 1980. They wanted to develop a film about time travel, but struggled to create a satisfying narrative and were desperate for a successful project after the critical and commercial failures of the recent efforts in collaboration with Zemeckis' mentor, Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg involved, but
Who's
also,
that?
yeah, I know Steven Spielbergo, the Hispanic director. But no, so this is such a crazy thing to me. Um, I just heard about this fact recently. Did you know that at one point Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg were at a Devo concert and they talked to a young but this wasn't recent, this was in the 80s, but they literally talked to a young Mark Mothersbaugh about playing a wily scientist in a recent project they were working on. And there was a point where literally Devo could have been Doc Brown.
I would have. I could see it. I mean, listen, I
Yeah.
love Christopher Lloyd in it,
Mm.
but would we have just gotten "Whip It" as the title track? I feel like I don't know.
Huey Lewis is like, that's it. I'm taking me and my dick and I'm getting out of here.
You
Come
guys
on,
are never gonna
boys.
see this hog again.
Shoobity doo wop. So interesting little tidbit there. There's going to be a lot of these because I feel like this is a movie that just
Yeah, I'm trying not to interrupt like the entire time. So I'm like, there's so many facts in my brain about this movie.
Oh God. So following the release of their comedy Used Cars, Gale visited his parents and came across his father's high school yearbook. He wondered if he and his father would have been friends. Interesting little concept there. Do you think in high school, given that you were introduced to the film by your dad, do you think you and your dad would have been friends?
I suspect that my dad was way fucking cooler than I was.
Oh,
I don't mean that in like a bad way. It just like he
no,
was like
no,
a
no, no.
very outgoing, like I'm the quarterback kind of guy. And I was like, I run cross country and love graphic novels. Like we were different people. We were different people. Could we have been friends? Sure. I would have been that. We would have been that like unlikely duo. I'm gonna say yes, actually. Yeah, you know what? He was cooler than me, but we would have balanced each other out well.
It's weird because I think, interestingly enough, Marty and his dad in the movie would have been kind of like me and my dad. My dad was
Yeah.
kind of a nerd, like a paper boy, even in high school, whereas my mom was like a cheerleader, like the social like magnet in the town. She's in a small town at the time, but like my dad was just kind of like, oh, I'm just gonna read my sci-fi novels and um listen to my prog rock albums, and I don't need a
Spy
lot
on
of.
you from this tree limb.
He's a peeping tom. Um, that's how I found out what that was from that movie. But anyway,
Sure, sure.
but yeah, I would say I would have said I think I would have been like Marty, and I'm like, Dad, here, let me just can it with
Guide
the,
you.
let me just let's just cut this nerdum in half, save it for the future. But right now, we got to get my mom, man. I don't want to disappear.
So I've
Um,
got this picture, right?
yeah, I've got this picture of me yakking on myself after I watched ET because I was scared of the poop monster.
I
Um,
have an ET toy right up there that I keep at the Back to the Future. I've got like a Spielberg shelf.
nice. Yeah, I was terrified of that little poop guy. But and now I love him. He's great. But anyway, so the concept of wondering if your parents would be the same or, was, I don't know, my mom, like, I guess more outgoing or nebbish and the like quiet librarian or the brooding goth in the back of the class. Who knows? But this concept definitely led to the film and the idea of testing the theory if he could travel back in time when he and his parents were a similar age. He shared the idea with Zemeckis, Gale did, who recalled his mother's childhood stories were often contradictory. Gale and Zemeckis began a draft in late 1980. They sketched and acted out each scene to help develop the dialogue and actions. They believed many time travel films focused on the past being immutable and wanted to show the past being altered and the effect those changes would have on the future. I mean, this is a movie that was referenced in like Endgame and like all kinds of stuff. Like, I feel like there's a Back to the Future reference in quite a few different things. We're
Sure.
focusing. I didn't mention this. We're focusing on the first film. I think in the future, maybe we'll come back, especially to Back to the Future 2 or even 3. But the first film specifically being kind of like the setting the template for everything to come in the future. But like,
Plus, you and I get together, and it and we've never ran long before. If we had to do 3 movies, we'd be here till
oh,
tomorrow morning.
I know. I'd be, it would be, you'd be on the bed sleeping. We'd have 5 minutes to make it to work.
And if you'll have me, I would happily be here for the sequel and third movie,
Oh,
because
oh,
like I told you, my dad introduced me, and the only other thing we watched was westerns. So imagine my surprise on that Sunday afternoon when we went to Blockbuster, and my dad said, "We should grab Back to the Future 3. It's a western."
oh man. I love them all. I'll say that. I don't have any. I think some people kind of talk down about 3, uh, but it works for me. It's
It
a
leans
fun
into the
change up.
camp. I
I
love it. It leans into the camp so hard, and it needed that. That's what
I
you do with the third movie. You can't
mhm,
take yourself too seriously. You're making a fucking third movie that
right.
did not need to be made, and the second one was never even like a thing. I'm pretty sure the to be continued was added later in home video. So yeah, yes, it was perfect in my opinion. I sorry, I know we're only doing the first one right now, but
No, no, no. I
yeah,
figure if
100%.
people were just curious what our takes were on that, we can at least say that, like, yes, those movies, and they have their place. And I think what's interesting about the second movie is that it's like a sequel with the first movie inside of it, which is something interesting that you don't necessarily see. It's almost like a re-examination of the classic. But continuing on, Gale and Zemeckis began their draft. They sketched and acted out the scenes. In the draft, video pirate Professor Brown builds a time machine that sends his young friend Marty back to the 50s, where he interrupts his parents' first meeting. In September 1980, Gale and Zemeckis pitched their idea to Columbia Pictures president Frank Price, who had liked used cars and was keen to work with the pair. Gale recalled um, having to rein in Zemeckis' enthusiastic pitch before Price had time to change his mind. Gale and Zemeckis completed the first draft for Price on February 21st, 1981. But Price believed it needed significant refinement. Some early concepts were abandoned. Originally, Marty's actions in 1955 had a more significant impact on the future, making 1985 more futuristic and advanced. But every person who read the script took issue with the idea. Marty's father also became a boxer, a result of his knockout punch on Biff. Seems like a leap, but I mean, it's a great sequence.
They're like, also, we'll just do it in the second movie.
Right, right, exactly. The time machine was a stationary object moved around on the back of a truck. Inspired by the documentary The Atomic Cafe, the drained time machine was written to be powered by Marty driving it into a nuclear explosion.
Yeah, wasn't it like originally a refrigerator or something like
Yeah,
that?
combined with
Yeah.
an additional ingredient, Coca-Cola. Hey,
Yes. This sounds a lot like the Fallout video games.
uh, are you excited for that TV show?
To be honest, I was never like huge on the Fallout games, but I am. I always love a TV show adapted from a video game. There's a lot to do with that stuff.
Totally. I've been dying for them to do a BioShock TV show.
Oh, that would be something that, again, it's like a game that I haven't like probably played as thoroughly as I should have, but 100% just because I've played the first one enough,
Mm-hmm.
that would be a fantastic,
It
especially
could be
because of
fun.
how different the games are. They could break
Yeah,
those down seasonally, and it could be like an American Horror Story kind of thing.
you're selling me. We should
Boom.
start a production
Maybe
studio.
executive producer
Hell,
Cromulent Jesse.
hell yeah. Um, So, inspired by the documentary, The Atomic Cafe, we mentioned the additional ingredient being Coca-Cola. I think Pepsi won that, but Gale and Zemeckis took inspiration from tales of legendary scientists, opting to make the time machine's creator an individual instead of a faceless corporation or government. The pair wanted the inciting time travel incident to be an accident so that it would not appear that the hero was seeking personal gain. Gale and Zemeckis drew humor from the cultural contrast between 1955 and 1985, such as Marty entering a 1955 soda shop in 1985 clothing. The shop owner asked Marty if he is a sailor because his down vest resembles a life preserver. They
I
also
don't think I ever got that.
I love that joke. There's a few subtle jokes that upon repeated viewing have popped up and made me laugh harder. Um and stuff like that. I love. They also identified conveniences of 1985 that Marty had taken for granted, but would be denied in 1955. Gale and Zemeckis struggled with the writing as they were in their 30s and did not particularly identify with either era. They were inspired by the all-American aesthetic of films by Frank Capra, featuring white picket fences and exaggerated characters similar to Biff. Biff is so great in this
So
movie.
great. And Tom Wilson, I think the actor's
Tom
name is.
Wilson, yeah, is a comedian
Such
actually.
a great dude. Such a great dude.
Yeah,
All and all of his like things that he talks about like now with Back to the Future are so hilarious and great. Like he's gonna be the historian of the trilogy, like as it goes down the line. That's how
I
I feel.
I completely agree. And nobody in this movie, um, none from Christopher Lloyd to Michael J. Fox to Thomas Wilson, um, I mean, nobody is badly cast in any way in this movie. I mean, other than Eric Stoltz, but like
Burn.
no shade to him. He's a great actor as well, but like I think that everybody just nails it. I mean, full disclosure, my first band was called Lorraine, based on Lorraine McFly from Back to the Future. That's how
Dang.
deep
Deep cut.
deep cut, my friend. But similar to okay, so they wanted exaggerated characters like Biff. The Twilight
Leah
Zone.
Thompson's fine. Sorry, I'm just
No,
throwing
she
that out
is
there.
she's great. Totally. Um, they wanted exaggerated characters similar to Biff, the Twilight Zone science fiction films and books by Robert Silverberg and Robert Heinlein. The romantic relationship between 1955 Lorraine and her future son was one of the more difficult writing challenges. Gale and Zemeckis attempted to take the concept as far as possible to keep the audience on edge. They believed edging would go into the future to become a thing. They believed it had to be Lorraine who stopped the relationship. She remarks that kissing Marty feels like kissing her brother. Gail jokingly said no one asked how she could make that comparison, but that audiences would accept it because they did not want the relationship to happen. The second draft was completed April 7th, 1981. Unfortunately, Price opted not to greenlight the second draft. Although he liked it, he did not believe it would appeal to anyone else. The most successful comedies at the time, such as Animal House, Porky's, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High in 1982, featured sexual and body elements. Back to the Future was considered too tame in comparison, which is just shocking to me because, like, it still has that element, though. Like,
But
it's
you know what? For 1985, there is a shocking lack of boobies.
true.
So
True.
that I mean, if you just start there, it's already you're knocking it down like two or three dirty notches. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's how because I did like I see it like it's like well this is the time of Porkies and yeah, yeah, you just like you said, like any raunchy 80s comedy, it's like, all right, when and where are the boobs? Because you know they're coming. Like, and I probably thought that when my dad showed me this movie. I was like, I've seen these 80s movies. Where are these boobies at?
Where
And
are
they
the
weren't
boobies?
there. All I
Mm.
got was a fucking masterpiece, Ryan.
You got a
Imagine my surprise.
you got a delicious buffet of zany, fun, intellectually stimulating Huey Lewis chart toppers, and an incredible, hasn't been said yet, Alan Silvestri score, which I would put up there in the top 5 greatest movie scores of all time. I mean, your blood gets pumping as soon as the ending sequence kicks in and that music is just, you're worried. Is Marty really going to make it back? Is Jennifer
John Williams, who?
whatever, that guy just makes scores for big fishes and shit.
It's some space movie, I guess.
Yeah, something. Uh this script was rejected 40 times, ladies and gentlemen. 40. Like I said,
So
don't give up. You got a great
exactly,
idea.
to go back on what you said, keep going.
Keep going. Uh Sometimes multiple times by the same studios. Reasons given included the concept being unappealing to contemporary rebellious youth and the failures of other time travel films such as The Final Countdown and Time Bandits, which is actually a pretty fun movie. Walt Disney Productions turned it down because they considered Marty's fighting off his future mother's advances too risque for their brand. I cannot
Yeah.
believe that. The mouse
Yeah.
didn't like it. Yeah. The only supporter of the project was Steven Spielberg, but with their previous collaborations considered relative failures, Gale and Zemeckis feared another misstep would suggest they could get work only through being friends with Spielberg. Zemeckis accepted the next project offered to him, Romancing the Stone. Against expectations, the film was a significant success and gave Zemeckis enough credibility to return to Back to the Future. Zemeckis held a grudge against the studios that had rejected the project and turned to Spielberg, who had set up his own production company, Amblin Entertainment, at Universal Studios, where Price now worked. Spielberg disliked Price because Spielberg disliked Price because he had rejected E.T. and demanded his involvement in Back to the Future to be minimal. Sidney Sheinberg insulted.
Damn.
No,
Steven Spielberg cold like that?
what I like is that just to think of kindly old Steven Spielberg being like, I don't like that guy.
Oh, did you deny my movie?
He didn't
Yes,
like my
everybody
shit
else
alien.
involved. I would like for his involvement to be particularly small. Thank you. Also, write into his contract that he does not receive craft services. He has to bring his own food.
I mean, it's interesting. But I mean, I can't imagine anybody like talking down to Spielberg ever.
No, that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Jaws, E.T., Indiana
Yeah,
Jones.
he was on a little bit of a hot streak at the time.
A bit. I mean, I knew who Steven Spielberg was, and I was like a prepubescent boy.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
his name was in everything. In the 80s, I think it was a time too where you really started to see directors' names on things and thought quality or it was almost like a branding thing. So Cindy Sheinberg installed himself as chief executive to oversee the studio's involvement in the project. Amblin executives Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall joined Spielberg as the film's executive producers. However, rights to Back to the Future remained with Columbia Pictures. Price's successor at Columbia Pictures, Guy McElwain, was developing a satire of the Universal-owned noir film Double Indemnity called Big Trouble. Its similarities to Double Indemnity meant the studio would violate Universal Pictures' copyright. With production imminent, McElwain asked for the rights from Price. In exchange, Price obtained the rights to Back to the Future. Sheinberg suggested modifications to the film, including changing the title to Spacemen from Pluto, believing Back to the Future would not resonate with audiences.
I mean, I like both.
I'm not going to not buy a ticket to Spaceman from Pluto.
Right. But I will say that with Spaceman from Pluto, I would have been like, yo, there were a very few spacemen from Pluto in that movie.
I know that feels like that's almost like a
oh, it was the comic book he was reading in that one scene for 8 seconds. I see. Like, yeah. It would definitely would have thrown me for a loop. Back to the Future, I'm like, yeah, because they went back to the future.
right.
Okay, I got it. All right, very good. Makes sense to me.
Right. Um, so Scheinberg later claimed the story was bullshit. Scheinberg also wanted to change the name of Marty's mother from Meg to Lorraine, a tribute to his wife Lorraine Gary, and rename Professor Brown to Doc Brown because he considered it more accessible. I don't
It's
think
like this guy was up his own asshole, but he also had some really great ideas.
this guy's got his head so far up his ass he can't even hear himself.
But Lorraine is a great name. Yeah, I like that. 2 syllables. Let's go for it.
It sounds kind
Yeah,
of 50s. I dig it.
yeah. You know what? Doc Brown is nice actually too. Shit. All right, fuck. All right, he's in.
He's just sitting there chomping on his own shit. The lengthy development allowed Gale and Zemeckis to refine the script's jokes, especially ones that had become dated since 1980. The joke about former actor Ronald Reagan becoming president of the U.S. remained following his reelection in 1984.
Reagan loved this movie too.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Mommy, let's put it on in the back room. Let's put it on.
He used the where we're going, we don't need roads in a presidential State of the Union speech.
Oh my God. Of course.
That's real life.
Mm-hmm.
Reagan smash. Reagan says, where we're going, we don't need roads. It's from that movie I like.
Oh God. So let's get into the casting. Michael J. Fox was the first choice to portray Marty McFly. Gale and Zemeckis believed his acting timing in the sitcom Family Ties as the sophisticated Alex Keaton could be translated to Marty's clumsiness. Spielberg asked the show's producer, Gary David Goldberg, to have Fox read the script, concerned Fox's absence would damage Family Ties' success, especially with fellow star Meredith Baxter on maternity leave. Goldberg did not give Fox the script. Other young actors were considered, including John Cusack, C. Thomas Howell, Johnny Depp, Ralph Macchio, Charlie Sheen, John Cryer, Ben Stiller. Interesting. Peter DeLuise, Billy Zane, George Newberg, Robert Downey Jr., Christopher Collette, Matthew Modine, and Corey Hart, who declined to audition. Corey, what the fuck?
Yeah, so every heartthrob in the 80s and Ben Stiller.
Right. Forced. He's a great guy. Howell was C. Thomas Howell was the front runner, but Scheinberg preferred Eric Stoltz, who had impressed with his portrayal of Rocky Dennis in early screening of the drama film Mask.
That movie freaked me out as a kid.
Me too.
I think Stoltz is a fantastic actor. I just think that what you have already said was the exact point, is that like great actors can't always be funny.
True. I mean, realistically, he's much more dry, almost. And in fact, it's funny that Matthew Modine was there too, because I'm sure it was partially due to his involvement with Full Metal Jacket. It's kind of crazy to me to think of there being anybody else. I mean, it makes sense. Michael J. Fox, like that casting is superb.
It's too good. I mean, we don't say it's like the movie is perfect, because like it could have been better if it had been Johnny Depp.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, you're right. There are very few movies, and I know it sounds silly, but Anchorman is another one to me, where it's like there's just no roles that I would have been like, I'd have rather seen this person here. This is fantastic from top to bottom, and this very much fits that mold. So all these are fun to think about, and whenever I see these, I'm things like this for other movies, I'm like, oh man, like I would have loved to have seen that actor in this. None of these, I read them, I'm like, oh, interesting, next.
No, it's true. I feel like in a weird way with Michael J. Fox's Marty McFly, there's almost like American audiences have this love at first sight vibe with his character and his casting. Almost because of Marty, you fall in love with everybody else too. You're in
that opening sequence.
Yeah.
Just like you said, you're pulled in immediately, and you're like, well, this is the fucking coolest guy on the planet. All right, here we go.
What the fuck? This poor dog is just shit dog food all over the place. I mean, the whole Rube Goldberg contraption in the opening shot is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know who came first, if it was Pee Wee's Big Playhouse or that, but like it seems like that was like the vibe at the time, was like that, those type of like contraptions. Like you had Mousetrap in the supermarket and or the toy store or whatever, KB Toys, and then you had it on the screen and visually represented perfectly. So also some other casting, among others, there was Jeff Goldblum, John Lithgow, Dudley Moore, Ron Silver, Robin Williams, John Cleese, Mandy Patinkin, Gene Hackman, and James Woods were considered for the role of Doc Brown. Jeff
See,
Goldblum,
and
yeah.
yeah, pass on that. A couple of those are interesting to me. Honestly, Lithgow, I think, probably would have been hilarious and super fun. But
Mm-hmm.
again, no, no, pass. Sorry, you're all. Let's. I'd like to go, Christopher Lloyd, please. Thank you.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah,
Producer Neil Canton was the one who suggested Lithgow, having worked with him and Christopher Lloyd on Buckaroo Banzai. Lithgow was unavailable and the role was offered to Lloyd. He was reluctant to join the production until a friend encouraged him to take the part. Albert Einstein and conductor Leopold Stokowski inspired Lloyd's wild white hair. Lloyd affected a hunched posture to lower his 6 feet 1 inch tall height closer to 5'5" to the 5'5" tall Fox.
yeah. Michael J. Fox is a tiny man.
Very.
You're small when like your female counterpart has to be recast because she's too tall to stand next to you. Uh, but I think that that's an interesting thing. Like he's just like, well, I'm gonna stand sort of hunched over, and
Right.
please don't recast me.
No, but I think it works. I mean, like Doc doesn't necessarily come. I never think of Doc Brown as like super tall. I think when I see him in the movie, I just think wily, crazy, lovable guy. Like, and that's the other thing that's so infectious about the movie is like the he kind of comes across to me, especially as a little kid. I just remember thinking like, man, I wish I had a Doc Brown, like
Yeah,
a crazy, almost like the dude lives out of the back of a Burger King in like a dilapidated garage with pictures of his burnt down house or whatever. And like just the everything about it, I want to question, but at the same time, I'm like, no, what are we doing? What are we inventing, Doc? This is great.
yeah. It's like that, like the difference between like watching a movie to enjoy it and watching it like with a logical brain. And you're like, no, McFly family, you should not have been okay with your teenage son hanging out with a 50-year-old nutty professor.
Marty,
Uh,
the Libyans. Like, quiet, quiet,
hold
Doc.
this briefcase and shut the fuck up.
And I mean, it's amazing when like literally Dan Harmon and like all of them copied verbatim with Rick and Morty this
Right.
mixture, and nobody bats an eye. They're just like, yeah, it's also genius, but whatever. Like
Exactly.
the formula works so well, especially with young boys. Like we can't help but love the idea of adventuring with and to the credit of the film, like even in Back to the Future 1 and 2 and 3, like Marty's love interests work, like the Jennifer thing works. And it hits all those facets, like from nerddom to just like rock and roll, and we love it. The filmmakers became aware of Leah Thompson while researching Stoltz in the comedy drama The Wildlife. Crispin Glover used many of his mannerisms in portraying George McFly. Gale described his performance as nuts, and Zemeckis was reportedly unhappy with Glover's performance choices, instructing him to be more restrained as the older George. Glover lost his voice during filming and later dubbed in some lines. DeLuise, Zane, Tim Robbins, and J.J. Cohen were considered to play Biff Tannen. Cohen was not considered intimidating enough against Stoltz, and the role went to Thomas F. Wilson, his first feature starring role. Guy should,
Killed it.
yeah, like legit killed it. Um, Cohen was not considered intimidating enough, as I said. Zane and Cohen were cast as Biff's minions, Match and Skinhead instead. Tannen's name was taken from Universal Studios executive Ned Tannen, who had been unpleasant with Galen Zemeckis.
This movie is just made out of revenge.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, we're gonna fucking yeah. I mean, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, especially if I'd been turned down 40 times, like turn me down, you're going to be the one who gets covered in manure.
I wonder how many interesting little sexual proclivities came from Back to the Future for people. Like if there would have been somebody dressed up as like a dog in a dog felt costume or whatever, like there would have had just every sexual deviance or fantasy or thing that would have popped out of this film. But like
Poor
between
Einstein.
which you know, every time I see that, I'm always shocked. It's like they just sent that poor dog back in time like he's a Russian monkey or something. Like I'm surprised he doesn't come back looking like a package of melted hot pockets from a microwave. Like, oh fuck, Einstein. No, Einie.
Oh no, we've broken him down molecularly.
Somebody
The
clean the
bonds that coveil him have failed.
somebody clean the dog brains off the flux capacitor. We gotta reboot the fucking Wi-Fi for this thing. Um Melora Hardin was cast as Jennifer Parker on a 2-film contract after Stoltz's replacement. The crew were polled about Hardin being taller than Fox. The female crew overwhelmingly voted Marty should not be shorter than his girlfriend. Hardin was replaced by Claudia Wells, who had previously declined the role because of her commitment to the short-lived television series Off the Rack.
Yeah, that's what I was really poorly explaining earlier.
Yeah.
The Malora Hardin thing.
No,
I don't. I honestly because as an actress, I don't recognize her as being in anything other than The Office.
right.
So I was like, whoa, she existed in the 80s? Like, you know what I mean? It's just so silly, but it's like one of those things where I was like, whoa, she was like in this movie for a minute
Yeah.
until she wasn't. Thanks, Eric.
Well, it happens, you know, but like,
She's done okay for herself.
yeah, she, you know what? I think she, you know, as sad as we may feel for, as I may feel for Eric Stoltz, he's doing just fine.
Exactly.
Actresses Kira Sedgwick and Jill Sholin were also considered. Sholin was told she looked too exotic and not sufficiently all American. Doc Brown's pet, a dog named Einstein, was originally scripted as a chimpanzee named Shemp.
It's 2 on the nose, guys. We gotta rewrite on this. Order a pizza. We're staying all night.
Ook, ook. Put me in the time machine, Doc. Throws poop. God damn it, Shemp. Scheinberg insisted films featuring chimps never did well. What about those Clint Eastwood orangutan movies? That's not the same as chimps, I guess.
Did those do well?
I think they did. They sold a lot of Coors Banquet beer. James Token was the first choice for Principal Strickland after Zemeckis saw him in the crime drama Prince of the City. James Token as the principal, great. Like again, like of the antagonists of the films, Token works so well. And like,
did you not think your high school principal was going to be like that when you got there? Like that movie like set me up to like fear high school, and it wasn't because of the students there. It was like, oh man, the teachers are going to be so mean. What if I'm late to class? I don't have a hall pass.
Right, exactly. Like I'm gonna get lectured with my arm around my girlfriend by some bald guy who's gonna tell me I'm gonna flunk, you know. And interestingly enough, I did have a science teacher once tell me, I was in 9th or 10th grade, I can't remember exactly, but I remember I'm in science class, so he's talking about chlorophyll, and I'm all filled out, and I'm, you know, drawing 9 Inch Nails fucking pictures, you know, emblems on the side of my notebook, and he looks at me and he says, Herrig. And I'm like, bleh. And he's like, what's the answer? And I was just like, I don't know. And he literally told me, Ryan, you are going to flunk out of everything you're in. Fuck him, because I never went to college.
Yeah, and his stupid face.
Yeah, exactly. And he's probably bald right now and yelling at some other kid. Well, screw that.
So really quickly,
Mhm,
to give you an update, the Clint
mhm,
Eastwood movie with an orangutan every which way but loose
mhm.
cost $5 million and grossed $85 million. So yeah, they should have just done it in orangutan.
I hey, hey, Jesse's backing me up. I like monkeys, but that's just me. Or chimps or whatever. Whatever your proclivities are there. But so we talked about James Token, singer and soundtrack contributor Huey Lewis cameos as a Battle of the Bands judge. Lewis agreed to appear as long as he was uncredited and could wear a disguise. Gail cameos as the hand in the radiation suit tapping the DeLorean time display.
Dang,
So
can you imagine? I want that cameo. They're like, "Who are you?" You're like, that one scene where they're like tapping the flux capacitor. That's my fucking hand, dude. It could like never
uh
be proven at all ever, but you like swear on your deathbed, everybody's like, Grandpa, what do you want to say? You're like, it really was my hand.
like and you're as the kid, you're just like you got your AirPods in and you're fucking watching augmented reality. You're like, what did Grandpa say? Oh, he's gone. Never mind.
Yeah, pull up that scene really quick. There's no way that was his hand. There's no way. Project it to the wall. Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, Grandpa had a lot of delusions. Whatever. See you in the next life, Grampy. Uh, so principal photography began on November 26, 1984, on a 14-week schedule set to conclude on February 28th, 1985, with an estimated $14 million budget. Filming took place mainly on the Universal Studios lot and on location in California. Dean Cundy served as a cinematographer. Excuse me. Added the burp for emphasis because Dean Cundy's great. I know. No, Dean Cundy is an American cinematographer and film director. He is known for his collaborations with John Carpenter, Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis, as well as his extensive work in the horror genre, in addition to numerous family and comedy films. I did want to say that he is excellent. He has worked with some of the greats. And cinematography is important, you know. Um, Editor Arthur Schmidt was hired after Zemeckis saw his work on Firstborn. Schmidt recommended hiring Harry Kermidas as co-editor. Frank Marshall also served as a second unit director. Frank Marshall's great too. He's involved like going back with like Peter Bogdanovich and all these like super important things. Like some of these people, I mean, obviously everybody knows Kathleen Kennedy and like her work with Disney now. I know there's a lot of probably people going, boo, boo, I hate like 17 different Star Wars properties. I only want the minimal amount of Star Wars, but it's got to be good and it's got to be focused on,
But she's like
Jack
so rich that
Rebo.
she has a soundproof mansion and can't hear you guys.
Yeah, exactly. It's never going to hear you guys. Anyway, Stoltz utilized method acting and stayed in character as Marty when not filming, refusing to answer to his own name.
Yeah, such an asshole.
That's kind of a dickhead thing.
I get method acting, but like being like, no, I only answer to Marty when we're on set. It's just an asshole. It's an asshole thing to do.
Eric, your medications here. No, I only answer to Marty.
And listen, I've read his backstory. He does not take medication. They're like, listen, Eric, this is your schizophrenia medication, and we really need to get you back on it because, buddy, things are getting a little fucking weird here.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, method acting. Oh man, we have an acting episode up now, so it's not up right now as we're filming this, but you can hear about us discussing the thing with when it comes to method and different methods that people use for acting. I've always been on the side, like, obviously we all love Daniel Day-Lewis. We
I
all
was
love,
gonna say, if you're gonna do it, fucking commit like Daniel Day Lewis. Damn it.
I, yeah. but like even he was at least cordial with his crew. Like he wasn't
Sure.
he yes, maybe I don't think he necessarily Jim carried out per se, like like Man on the Moon style.
Right, right.
But like I think that like certain actors, it was interesting because there was an interview with Daniel Day-Lewis specifically where he talked about the fact that like he people like that who do things that way, who commit like 110% to a role, he did it because he didn't know any other way to do it, and to do it that way was the best way for him per se to,
Sure,
to,
sure.
to do the best job possible. I get that. And we reap the benefits from things like There Will Be Blood and Gangs of New York, and even and pretty much anything he did.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just pick one.
Exactly. But like in this you're doing a sci-fi movie that's like kind of family friendly.
It's got some comedic bops most of the way through it. Like
I don't know that, like, I mean, I get why this would be annoying personally.
100%.
This resulted in feuding with some of the cast and crew, including Wilson. Stoltz put his full strength into pushing Wilson rather than imitating doing so. Despite Wilson's protests, Spielberg and Zemeckis needed a replacement in place before firing Stoltz, or he risked the production being canceled. Zemeckis and the producers asked Scheinberg for permission to do whatever was necessary to accommodate Fox's participation. Spielberg made another call to Goldberg, and on January 3rd, 1985, Goldberg told Fox about withholding the Back to the Future script from the film, and the filmmakers wanted to know if he was interested. Baxter had returned to the show, and they could be more flexible with Fox as long as family ties took priority. Fox agreed to join without reading the script. The transition could not take place immediately, and filming continued with Stoltz in the lead role, unaware he was to be replaced. Wow.
Brutal. They're like, well, we need someone to stand in there.
Right.
Shit.
Yeah. I mean,
We don't have anybody else who's part of the guild that can do it right now. God damn it. I heard a really great story that was basically said like this isn't true, but it's a story that floats around Hollywood that when they approached him about letting him go from the set, he was like still being an asshole, and they said, "Hey, Eric," and he said, "I'm Marty," and they said, "No, you're Eric, and you're fired." And I was like, for sure it did. Obviously it didn't go down like that, but damn it, what if it did?
I know, Jesus. Well, on January 10th, 1985, Zemeckis informed Stoltz that he was being fired. Zemeckis described it as, quote, the hardest meeting I've ever had in my life, and it was all my fault. I broke Stoltz's heart.
Yeah, so it definitely wasn't that.
Stoltz was
That's
reported.
brutal.
Yeah. Stoltz was reported to have told his makeup artist he was not a comedian and did not understand why he was cast. The producers informed the principal cast and the rest of the crew much of the film would be reshot. Dean Cundy said most of the crew saw Stoltz removal as good news. Crew members later said there are obvious signs Stoltz would be replaced. The set designers were told to not change the 1955 set, and a scene involving a discussion between Marty and Doc was filmed showing only Doc. Stoltz had shot numerous key scenes, including Marty's traveling to 1955 in the DeLorean. It's breaking down as he prepares to return to 1985, and his final scene was Marty's return to 1985. Filming fell behind schedule with 34 days of filming lost, an additional cost of 3.5 to 4 million, including Stoltz receiving his salary in full. Universal Pictures marketing team was tasked with mitigating the negative publicity from a project replacing its main star. And I mean,
Man.
it's the time where like they didn't have to deal with like film videos of like, is that Henry Cavill on the set
Right.
of Justice League 7, Dawn of the Star? Like,
Sure.
like leaked shit like that. Like they could very easily have a publicist just run some.
Yeah.
All they had to do was throw Spielberg's name on there, and everybody be like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, whew, okay. I like the idea that the cast, like some of the cast, is like, "Oh, thank God he's gone." And then I also like to think that that's probably that's very same group of people were like, Do you think we could get Crispin Glover fired too, or
Is
like
there a hey
while we're doing
boss?
it?
I know I'm just a sound grip guy, but the guy that was like said he was Marty, he touched my butt one time. He said Marty would do that. I feel I feel violated here. But like, yeah,
I
no.
think we better just get all new McFlys, top to bottom.
Hey, is every I know this scene's done shot and everything, but is anybody gonna eat all this peanut brittle? Delicious. Um, to compensate for the conflicting schedules and reduce production costs, some scenes involving Marty were shot without Fox, who filmed his part separately. Reshooting scenes allowed the filmmakers to identify problems and implement new ideas. To avoid building an additional classroom set, the opening pan across the array of clocks in Doc Brown's laboratory replaced an opening scene where Marty sets off a fire alarm to get out of detention. The height differences between Stoltz and Fox necessitated other changes, such as a scene of Fox teaching George how to punch because Fox could not reach the necessary prop. According to Gale, once Fox replaced Stoltz, the atmosphere on set improved. Thompson anecdotally said, while Stoltz ate lunch alone in his trailer, Fox ate lunch with the cast and crew.
Yeah, he was a bro. He
Uh,
was out there broing down, and Stoltz was all, "I'm Marty McFly, and I'm an actor now, and I'm method acting that I'm a method actor, and I'm eating in my trailer for lunch. I'm Marty. Remember
like
that in case I
just
didn't say
sitting
it
in
today.
his trailer, like just yeah, I don't know.
What a loser!"
I mean, it's just it's one of those things where it's like, why just be a just it's not necessarily just be a bro, it's like be a human, you know?
Well, and listen, we do jobs where we're like, "Hey, I got this job now," and you're kind of expected to do it for like the next 40 years until you die or retire. And they're like, "Hey, I got this job for 14 weeks. So you
Exactly.
suck it up and hang out with everybody for 4 months." And then, like, you could be like, "Hey, I didn't particularly like working with Christopher Lloyd." And then you could like not work with Christopher Lloyd ever again if you just so choose to do that.
Well, I was like to think because I mean, I'm like I mentioned before, kind of a cinema fan, and I do tend to like the movies with actors who have reoccurring roles in productions. And according to the blind items, or at least the things that I read on the interwebs, a lot of those reasons that those guys are so successful is because they do hang out and they do appreciate the cast and crew. And I feel like
Sure.
in movies you should, there's a reason Brad Pitt is usually in every single Quentin Tarantino movie, or Scorsese used Leonardo DiCaprio in so many movies. Yeah, maybe DiCaprio was once part of the Pussy Posse and ran Hollywood. And maybe he likes 25 or below when it comes to females. As long as he shows up on time and like much like Taylor Swift paying all of her truck drivers, like isn't so like I don't know, up his own ass like the
Right.
Columbia Pictures guy, like legitimately cares about the production, I think at the end of the day, when you put out a product, you want people to care about the whole and not necessarily just themselves. But anyway, post-production. Before I get to that, filming concluded after 107 days on April 26, 1985. The final day of filming included pickup shots of Marty and Einstein, the dog, and the DeLorean.
Cute.
Yeah, it's a cute dog.
Yeah. There are parts of the movie where if you slow it down, the dog is not cute. Because it is not a dog. Are,
Interesting.
are, are you familiar with that?
Mm-mm.
In most of the shots where Einstein is in the DeLorean getting sent back to 1955 on his own,
Mm-hmm.
they could not. I From what I understand, it was too expensive to retrofit the car to be remote controlled. So a stuntman dressed as a dog and drove the car. That's why the shots are so, like, if you watch it, the shots of Einstein in the car, like, whoa, there he is, whoa, 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 and it's all really fast. But like when you get those shots slowed down, you're like, oh, that's a
Hey,
guy in a dog costume.
hey, Bob, I think we're gonna have to reset up this shot. That dog was licking his balls again. Oh, the
You
paper
know, I think my
mache,
cousin Sal could play that dog better than that dog.
the fucking dog, the paper mache fake dog's head fell off. Fuck. Set up the DeLorean again.
Just cut it a second early. I'm fucking sick of this. We're taking off. I'm at least doing lunch.
It's lunchtime. All right. Arthur F. Rapola served as post-production supervisor, but he became responsible for many aspects outside his role, including budget, storyboarding, and general problem solving. Those roles belonged to Kennedy and Marshall, but both were occupied on other films. Schmidt found editing the film difficult because he had to imagine where the special effects would be later added. There was no time or budget to re-edit afterward. A rough version of the movie was cut together for a test screening at the Century 22 Theater in San Jose, California in mid-May 1985, just 3 weeks after filming concluded. That's fast. The audience was seemingly uninterested at the exposition-heavy opening, but became engaged after the DeLorean appeared. At a test screening in Long Beach, California, 94% of the audience responded they would recommend the film. 99% rated it very good or excellent. Gale said there was some concern when Doc's dog Einstein was sent through time, as the audience believed he had been killed. The film was recut and screened again at the Alfred Hitchcock Theater at Universal Studios for executives, including Scheinberg. He was so impressed, he moved the scheduled release date forward to July 3rd, 1985, to give it more time in theaters during the peak summer season.
I love that so much. That's like such a classic, like big wig boss move. He's like, holy shit, you guys, I got to tell you something. This is one of the greatest things I have ever seen. I know we've done it on a very tight schedule. I'm cutting 3 weeks off the back. We're putting it out early.
Yeah.
All right, everybody,
I
get
mean,
together. Let's go.
the dollar signs were lighting up in
Yeah,
his eyes,
100%.
and it makes sense. Deleted scenes include Doc looking at an issue of Playboy, remarking the future looks better. Marty,
Are they just naturally less hairy now, or
Jesus, Marty, the fucking ham hocks on this one. Oh, doesn't quite look like Rita Hayworth in the future, do they? A scene of young George trapped in a phone booth by the man who interrupts his dance with Lorraine, and the scene of Marty pretending to be Darth Vader, which was shortened. I love that sequence. I am Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan. Commenced play Eruption by Van Halen. Every comedic sequence in this movie hits so good, and it's like even on repeated viewings, you're either acting it out or mouthing the words because it's just like,
yeah,
it's so good. And I know they mentioned Crispin Glover being kind of weird and all that, but like it kind of fits the movie to me. Like
100%. 100%. That's why I say, like, don't recast anybody. He seems like he
no,
was weird, and I'm sorry for the cast that had to work with his weird ass, but
yeah, it works.
hey, you didn't get him for the other movies, so good for you.
All right, exactly. There's a dispute if a shot of Stoltz's hand is in the finished film in the scene where Marty punches Biff. Gale noted, if it is impossible to tell without checking the original film negative, which would risk damaging. The final 116-minute cut was completed on June 23rd, 1985. Universal Studios took out a full-page advertisement in Variety magazine thanking the post-production crew for completing their work on time. The final budget was $19 million.
Really quickly, I saw an interview with Thomas Wilson, who he said that that's for sure Stoltz's hand, because he can guarantee that they did not film that angle with Michael J. Fox.
Wow.
He was like, I remember, definitely didn't happen. And also, I've heard that the scene where Marty jumps into the DeLorean,
Mm-hmm.
that also, like, there's thought that that could be Eric Stoltz too.
Wow. Well, you Back to the Future heads, let us know on our Instagram and in our email what you think. I don't know if I've heard I because I never heard about the Stoltz thing until way later. Like I think somewhere around the time of say like the 30th anniversary DVDs, or it was probably actually before that, because in high school I was in AV clubs, uh totally the coolest kid in school. And we used to, I remember that was about the time when I started hearing about stuff like it, especially like early internet times, like, oh, did you know like there was another guy who played Marty? And it was like I remember distinctly thinking like, no way. There's no way nobody else could play him. That's
They wouldn't do that.
They wouldn't do that. That's silly. But like, I don't know. I mean, the story is actually kind of endears the legacy of the movie even more. Like the kind of hapdash way they were like, fuck, we got to get this kid in the picture, and like they made it work. I mean,
Right.
and plus Fox feels more committed to the role because he wanted to do it so bad. I mean, having not read the script and just be like, yeah, it's fucking Spielberg, and
Yeah,
whatever.
I got this.
Yeah. Huey Lewis was approached to write a theme song for the film. He was coming off the success of his recent album, Sports. He met with Spielberg and Zemeckis, who intended that Huey Lewis and the News be Marty's favorite band. Though flattered, Lewis did not want to participate because he did not know how to write film songs. It did not want to write a one-off called Back to the Future. Zemeckis assured Lewis he could write any song he wanted. Lewis agreed to submit the next song he wrote, which was The Power of Love. Lewis maintains Power of Love was his first submission, but Zemeckis recalled a different first song that was rejected. Lewis later acquiesced to Zemeckis' request for a second song, Back in Time. They're both fun songs.
Right. I like to imagine the first one that they just try to jam the name of the film in there somewhere. It's like, don't need money, don't need fame. I'm going back to the future, babe.
And that shit's insane. Huey.
You know what? We actually don't need to shoehorn it in there. Go ahead, Huey. Let's go ahead and retake that first verse and then that second verse. And let's go ahead and hit that bridge.
Yeah.
And you know what? That third verse, let's go ahead and rewrite that one too.
You know what? I gotta go fuck some groupies. Let's get some horns in here real quick.
You guys hear about my T-Rex dog? It's pretty insatiable at times. Gotta feed him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Anyway. So musician Eddie Van Halen performed the guitar riff Marty addressed as Darth Vader uses to wake George. The filmmakers wanted to use Van Halen's music, but the band refused to take part, so Eddie took part on his own. It's interesting.
Yeah, and if you look on the tape, it says Van Halen, but right above it, it says Edward.
Interesting.
I'm not joking. I'm totally not joking.
Oh,
it
no,
says
no.
Small in the upper left-hand corner, a little bit lighter than the Van Halen. It says
Come on,
Edward.
David Lee Roth.
He's nah, come on, I can use that name. That's my name, bros. You can't say I can't use it.
That's interesting. When music supervisor Bones Howe learned of this, he secured Campbell a small percentage of the soundtrack revenue as compensation because Mark Campbell provided Marty's singing voice. Mark Campbell, who of Jack Mack and the Heart Attack, an American soul and R&B band that was formed in 1980 in Los Angeles, California. Their debut album Cardiac Party was produced by Glenn Frey of the Eagles. Jack Mack and the Heart Attack is an interesting band. And that's a scene that kind of gets there's a bit of a suspension of belief there when Marty starts singing during the dance sequence.
Right.
About you, because it's like all of a sudden Marty's singing like a 40-year-old, like fucking.
Yeah, you're like, man, velvety smooth. Hot damn, this young man is mature.
I love it because the sequence is so fun between the music and like, like the guy who's like, "Hey Marvin, listen to this," like
Yeah.
it's your or Chuck, it's your cousin Marvin, listen to this.
Yeah.
But like
So good.
it's
Your kids will like it.
yeah, you can yeah. That line. Oh, I love that line so much. I feel like I've said that to my kids like multiple times, just looked at them and like, all right, you guys aren't ready for that, but your kids are gonna love it. Like
Yeah.
just that whole love it. So Paul Hansen taught Fox how to use a guitar to play Johnny Be Good, and choreographer Brad Jeffries spent 4 weeks teaching Fox to replicate various rock star moves popularized by artists like Pete Townsend, Jimi Hendrix, and Chuck Berry. Berry withheld permission to use Johnny Be Good until the day before filming, receiving $50,000 for the rights.
I do love that. They're like, Chuck Berry said he didn't want his song in there. And I'm like, all right, good for Chuck Berry, like standing up for what he believes in, he just doesn't need a shit. They're like, 50,000. He's like, what the fuck? Why didn't you say that before?
That'll put a lot of cameras in girls' bathrooms. Chuck Berry out. Industrial Light and Magic developed the
Flies away.
He's just got wings. Industrial Light and Magic developed the film special effects under the supervision of Ken Ralston and Kevin Pike. It contains approximately 27 to 32 special effects shots compared to the 300 such shots typical in contemporary higher budget films. Despite working simultaneously on The Goonies and Cocoon, Ralston took on the additional project because it required relatively few effects, and he wanted to realize the planned ending of Marty driving the time machine into a nuclear explosion.
Oh, he's bummed.
Yeah.
He's like, wait, what do you mean DeLorean? You mean those shitty cars
Hey.
they don't even make anymore?
And it's like, what would that have been in our age in high school? I guess it would have been like a Ford Focus.
Like, what is this? A Chrysler LeBaron? What is this? A Chevy Beretta? Is that a
Oh,
Pontiac
Marty,
Grand Prix?
you have to get your Volkswagen Jetta up to 85 on the highway.
That's literally impossible, Doc.
It starts shaking when it hits 60. I don't know.
I think it's a bearing thing, honestly, but I'm not a mechanic.
Marty, when your Ford Taurus gets up to 78 miles, crank it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that is it. Just that concept of a nuclear explosion in Back to the Future just kind of it kind of flips the whole movie on its side a bit. But
yeah, I drove through a nuclear explosion in a Daewoo Lamos. No big deal.
Marty, we gotta get a lot of plutonium from the Libyans. We fucked up. The tight schedule affected the special effects quality. Ralston was disappointed by the scene where Marty's hand fades away as the future is altered. Fox was filmed separately from his hand, and the two were composited together. The hand was filmed with a wide-angle lens, making it appear too large, and it had to be scaled down. Zemeckis
is extra shitty.
It's Back to the Future, so it's like you're looking at Michael J. Fox, you're just like, I'll suspend my whatever.
Exactly. That's 100% correct.
Marty and his siblings fade away from a photo. ILM found it difficult to fade the photo's individual aspects, especially as it was moving on the neck of a guitar. A replica of the guitar neck was constructed at 4 times the normal size. The guitar strings were made of cable up to a 1/4 inch thick. An 11 by 14 aluminum plate was attached to hold the enlarged photograph. ILM used a version of the photo without Marty or his siblings and individually pasted each character into the photo. When this failed, 4 different photos were used, one containing the background and one for each McFly sibling. A mechanical camera cycled through each photo and printed it to film. The enlarged guitar was moved around to add to the realism.
I want to see this giant guitar neck prop. I'm already Googling it. I've been looking for it since you said it.
I feel like I want to see like a Pee-wee's Playhouse version of this crazy guitar. Just the same, my friend. I want to get to this nuclear explosion ending, though. This is something new. I didn't even know about this. The original nuclear explosion ending was considered too complicated and expensive, with an estimated cost of $1 million to shoot. Art director Andrew Probert storyboarded the scene, which would have been created using sets and miniatures. With the ending moved to the clock tower, ILM researched storms to achieve the right aesthetic. Clouds were constructed from polyester fiber fill, suspended in a net, and filmed from above while Ralston shone a powerful light from above. He used a rheostat to rapidly change the light's intensity to imitate lightning. And that scene works. Like
100%.
I think an explosion would have been just like too. It's weird because like in the 80s, specifically with like Bruckheimer and Don Simpson and all those movies, they would have been like, throw a bomb in there, kid. You want your movie to, to go places?
Yeah, we got to teach Michael Bay some shit. Come on.
Come on, guys. Finish up your Coke. We got another Coke party to go to and not Coca-Cola. But like the sequence at the end is so heart pounding, and like between the score and the acting, like you don't need like big boob boobs to make your movie sing, especially when like everybody wants to see this whole thing come together and like a resolution to the conflict of the movie. And it shows that like as long as you have those things firing, you don't need anything else.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe there's a version where boobies could have popped up and made the movie better. I don't know. Doc just like turns around.
It's a rare case where me, Cromulent Jesse, will admit that there is no place for boobies in this movie. I mean, you tell me where they'd go. I
don't know. I was thinking, Steven, what if the brown poop alien turns and he's got big fucking knockers? E.T. through the roof.
Yo, Sal and I were thinking.
We were thinking.
What if instead of E.T. we name him Tony?
Yeah, exactly. Tony the Tits alien from Pluto. I'm just picturing Jaws, and the shark jumps onto the ship, and it's just cut tits. We're gonna need a bigger boat,
and a bigger bra.
Exactly. Oh God. Anyway, so yeah, like the DeLorean was developed under the supervision of Lawrence Paul, who designed it with artist Ron Cobb and illustrator Andrew Probert. They intended for the vehicle to look fixed together from common parts. The time machine was originally conceived as a stationary device at one point, refrigerator, which you mentioned. Spielberg vetoed the idea, concerned child viewers might attempt to climb into one. See, that's why it makes the big bucks.
I'll just use it for an Indiana Jones movie in 35 years.
Yeah, and somebody was like, let's put Joaquin Phoenix's Joker in a fucking fridge. That'll work.
I'm pretty sure one of the Indiana Jones movies, he survives a nuclear explosion because he's inside a refrigerator. Yes. Yeah. Spielberg's like, okay, listen, it's just about the dollar signs now. I'll admit it.
Right. We're taking all my old ideas and doing them again. The Flying DeLorean in the final scene used a combination of live action footage, animation, and a 1:5 scale, approximately 33 inches long.
I fucking love a good miniature.
And I love the ending too. Like that reveal of it flying and like where we're going, we don't need roads. Like that just fucking sings. And then Fox's humor while he's holding his girlfriend and like, what, What's wrong, Doc? Are we assholes? Like,
Yeah.
so
That's one of my
good.
favorites. Also, as a kid who watched it on TV a lot,
Mhm.
and then later got it on DVD, like when I, grew up and moved out, I would still recite it as, "What are we, jerks?" Because
Yeah.
that's what it was on all TVs.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I
Yeah,
get it. Both line readings work. Um, so that he described so the act of the DeLorean traveling through time was called the time slice effect. Zemeckis knew only that he wanted the transition to be violent. He described it as a Neanderthal sitting on the hood of the DeLorean and chipping away the fabric of time in front of him. The effect is so
interesting.
quick as to be imperceptible. Zemeckis preferred this as he did not want the audience to think too much about how everything worked.
That's
Uh,
that's that's like the intro to Mystery Science Theater 3000. Are you familiar?
yeah, oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, like the last line is like, "If you're wondering how he eats and drinks, another science facts. Tell yourself it's just a show. I need to just relax." Like,
Exactly.
yeah. Like, don't think too much about it.
It's
It's
a
a
great
fucking DeLorean traveling through time with flames being left behind.
And that's the thing. Like when it comes to time travel, if you get your audience thinking a little too hard about the concept, either they're going to break their brain or it's just going to be like, it's not as fun anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Or they're gonna be like, that wouldn't be how it would work.
right. Or I want to have sex with my mom. Wait, what? But no, there's a lot of aspects to this movie that like, yeah, you can kind of start to pick apart if you really want to get stupid. I'm sure there's like plenty of YouTube channels called like the 100 problems with Back to the Future, and it's like my childhood sucked and my my parents were non-existent.
I hate universally loved things.
Yeah. Also, Labyrinth sucks, and so does the Goonies. Like,
And Forrest Gump was not a very good movie.
exactly. Come on, guys. Have a little fun. I know Forrest Gump is just boomer fantasy, but it's still fun. And
I
Tom
did see a wonderful thing this week where somebody was going through the top movie villains and somebody said Jenny from Forrest Gump.
Hey Forrest, now that I am riddled with AIDS and every defunct band I tried to sleep with has completely let me go, and I've come back home and I have a child and I'm living on, you know, can returns as a waitress at a diner. Yeah.
I'm gonna need to die now. Can you take this kid? Okay, bye.
I'm checking out.
Uh,
Yeah.
Flies away.
I loved her.
We got just everybody flying away today. Wait, Jenny, I thought you were sick. I'm sorry, Forrest.
Yeah, goodbye. Uh Anyway, so box office, we're going to talk about this. In the US and Canada, Back to the Future received a wide release on July 3rd, 1985, ahead of the Independence Day holiday weekend. The film earned 3.6 million during the opening Wednesday and Thursday and a further 11.3 million during its inaugural weekend from 1,400 theaters, an average of 7,853 per theater. Back to the Future finished as the number one film of the weekend ahead of Western Pale Rider in its second weekend and Rambo First Blood Part 2 in its seventh. It retained the
Rambo Second Blood.
yeah. I got blood too. It retained the number one position in its second weekend with a further gross of 10 million ahead of the debuting action film Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. I love those movies. Excited for the new Mad Max Furiosa. Although it fell to number two in its fourth weekend behind the debuting National Lampoon's European Vacation. Back to the Future regained the number one position in its fifth weekend and remained there for the following 8 weeks. I think this was
God
definitely a
damn.
word of mouth movie. Recalling the opening week, Scale said, our second weekend was higher than our first weekend, which is indicative of great word of mouth.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The film remained a steady success, earning 105 million by October, surpassing Rambo First Blood 2's 149 million, and became earnings to become the year's highest grossing film. In total, Back to the Future was the #1 film for 11 of its 12 first weeks and remained in the top 10 highest grossing films for a total of 24. By the end of its theatrical run, Back to the Future earned an approximate box office gross of 210 million, making it the highest grossing film of 1985. The sports drama Rocky IV it was ahead of, and the drama The Color Purple. Box Office Mojo estimated more than 59 million tickets were sold. Industry experts suggested that as of 1997, the box office returns to the studio minus the theater share were 105 million. The year was considered.
Damn.
Yeah. 1985, my friend. The reception critically, Back to the Future received generally positive reviews from critics. Most reviewers agreed Back to the Future was among the year's most entertaining films, partly because of its focus on storytelling instead of pure spectacle. Gene Siskel argued that while Back to the Future appeared to be everything wrong with youth-targeted films, it successfully subverted expectations by focusing on a relatable narrative with an emotional core and employed irreverent, good-natured humor. They, alongside Richard Corliss, agreed that it would endure because it offered something for children and adults, which I think is the formula that every Pixar movie tried to copy, and Disney effectively tried to run away with, was that children films with that subtle adult humor.
Yeah, and DreamWorks was like, no, we're gonna make adult films disguised as children films. Have you ever seen a swamp ogre named Shrek? Yeah, what do we name his main villain? How about Lord Fuckwad? No, that's too bad. Okay, how about Lord Farquad?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, I like it. Let's go.
Yeah, close enough. Hey, let's go to lunch.
Do the roar.
Yeah. So this movie just critically it was the same thing too. Like it essentially that people were so like even I'm looking at IMDb right now. It's got 8.5 out of 10 out of close to 1.9 million reviews. Like that's one of the
huge.
highest scores you can get on there. Critically, it's beloved. The cast performances were generally well received, particularly those of Fox, Lloyd, Thompson, and Glover. Reviewers consistently praised Fox's appealing performance, although some believed Lloyd's performance outshone the rest.
I would agree with that. Michael J. Fox is 100. It's not like either of them carried the movie without the other. It was like, wow, I could have done without that Christopher Lloyd, but I think Christopher Lloyd might have outshone him.
And just I think that in this movie the casting is everything, and they nail it 100% with these two. I do want to mention Leah Thompson. I think she's incredible as Lorraine McFly, and in some ways she kind of is the heart of the movie. And some of her scenes are so subtly comedic, but also devastating. Like when she's watching him watch The Honeymooners, and he's just, and she's like day drinking, or kind of just doing like the 3/4 of Stoli with like a splash of ginger on top. Like,
Yeah.
Just that drinking desperation sequence is just like, oh fuck, I've been there. But yeah, she's incredible, and she's a huge part of why I think also the movie works so well. Back to the Future received 4 nominations at the 43rd Golden Globe Awards for Best Picture, Best Actor to Michael J. Fox, Best Original Song, Power of Love, Best Screenplay to Galen Zemeckis. The film was also named Favorite Motion Picture at the 12 People's Choice Awards. At the 39 British the BAFTAs, Back to the Future received 5 nominations, including Best Film, Best Original Screenplay, Best Visual Effects, best science film. Uh, sorry. At the 13th Saturn Awards, the film won 3 awards: Best Science Fiction Film, Best Actor, and Best Special Effects. It also won the Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. Back to the Future performed well internationally. It won Best Foreign Producer, Spielberg, and Best Foreign Screenplay at the David D. Donatello Awards in Italy.
Yeah, dude, Ninja Turtles rule.
And yeah, I want to discuss a little bit before we start to wind down here a little bit. But the post release, the home video market, in especially in the late '80s, was huge. Back to the Future was released on VHS on May 22nd, 1986, priced at $79.95. VHS tapes were
Woo.
expensive back
I
then.
I remember that my grandpa's like pride and joy was his VHS. Like he was not a man who wanted for much. He was very much like when he died, we were like, "Whoa, you got a lot of money, dude." Well,
Yeah.
but his VHSs, and I remember that being like, younger, but understanding that holy shit, those cost how much?
Mm-hmm.
Also, when did it come out on Laserdisc?
Oh fuck. I mean, like, yeah, it's weird because they have that debate every now and then again about like video game prices and how they've been $60 forever. But everything they make money on now is has changed. It's kind of like how music doesn't necessarily sell the records like it used to. It makes it all in like shows, merch, stuff like that. Um, this movie was the first film to sell 450,000 units at that price point. It was also the most rented cassette of the year. A sequel was not planned until after Back to the Future's theatrical release, and to be continued graphic was appended to the end of the home release to promote awareness of future films.
Well, there you go.
When Back to the Future was released on DVD in 2002, the graphic was removed because Galen Zemeckis wanted it to be faithful to the in-theater experience. It debuted on Blu-ray in 2010 for the film's 25th anniversary. I think I have I don't necessarily have the VHS now. I had the trilogy on VHS in, I want to say, the early 90s, but like, I definitely have the Blu-ray, and I had some variation of the DVD.
The laser disc is on eBay for $400 if you want to round out your
Oh,
collection.
well, I have no laser disc player, but I mean, I don't know. I've always thought about like, are you the type of person who collects stuff like that? I mean, I know you got the little toys and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say mainly toys for me. Yeah, I do like. I'm not a big comic book fan, but I
Mhm.
do love old Tales from the Crypt comics. So basically, like if I see those, I'll buy them, and I don't even really read them. I just like having them. It's fun. So yeah, but I wouldn't pay $500 for one. So
Wow.
you can keep that laser disc, buddy.
I don't know. I I love, like, I've gotten into the disc plate thing a little bit, like artwork from comics and games that I love. I'm a massive we're doing a whole series this season on like all the Souls like From Software games. And
That's awesome. There's probably a lot of lore there.
there is, and it's fascinating, but like the art to that is great. But like, I'm also like, they just had the Elden Ring DLC thing, and it's like you can spend $250 for a doll. It's like, whew, it's I'm a fan, but like, to
That's
me,
kind of a lot.
yeah, to me, I'd rather, like, the things that I love, I'd rather talk about it with my friend on the internet,
Right. Yeah,
relish
100%.
some of the information that when my kids ask me one day, I can be like, did you know that Marty McFly was on Family Ties while he made this movie? And they're like, shut up, Dad. We're trying to TikTok with our friends. Like,
And then many years, this movie would be referenced on Family Guy.
yeah,
Okay. See, we're coming full circle here.
exactly. But like, yeah, I don't know. Some of it I'm into. Like the Funko Pops are cool for some people, or like that sort of thing. I guess for me, it's more of like trivia for my brain to pick
Sure.
apart or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Back to the Future soundtrack was released on July 1985 on cassette tape, LP, and cassette compact disc CDs. The soundtrack's lead single, The Power of Love, peaked at number 1 in the US Billboard Hot 100. Sales were initially slow, but eventually peaked at number 12 on the Billboard 200, in part because of the success of The Power of Love. Sylvester's score received a limited release in 2009 on CD containing the film's score and unreleased variations. The scores for all 3 Back to the Future films were first released on LP record in 2016, individually and as a collection. Silvestri supervised the remaster of the original master recordings, including previously unreleased tracks, and Gale contributed liner notes. Wow. And that's essentially Back to the Future, folks. We talked about it. We
Yeah.
relished in it. I had my friend come on, and
You're gonna have to stop us from talking about it.
you can't, because I'm
Can't
still
stop.
I'm going to be telling my grandbabies about this magical film, and then they'll be like, "Shut up, Grampy! You smell like shit."
I,
Did you
I have a fun fact for you, really quick.
really?
I saw this interview with Michael J. Fox, and he said it was at a Comic-Con. He said that that like this movie is so worldwide that in 2010 he was no sorry it was in the 90s he was traveling through a remote part of Bhutan when a
Mhm.
passing group of monks pointed to him and said, Marty McFly, Marty McFly. So he's just out in the middle of nowhere, and some monks pointed at him and called him Marty McFly.
That is crazy.
So if that doesn't give you like your cultural significance, that you're
Wow.
just like on some, vacation in Bhutan and some monks were like, hey, I know that guy.
I will say, I remember when I realized the impact of pop culture specifically for me. I met a guy. The context is a little interesting too. Maybe I'll get into that in a future episode. But I met a guy who was essentially from like who was a United Arab Emirates fellow, and essentially we were standing there and we couldn't really talk, and then all of a sudden he subtly referenced Dumb and Dumber as a joke, like just like uh, something to do with diarrhea and the and
All of a
I,
sudden you're like, big gulps, huh? All right, see you later.
and it all comes full circle, folks, because me and Jesse, we did a Jim Carrey episode, which you
Damn
can
right.
see online like this episode. But yeah, I love pop culture. I love movies. I love video games. I love all this stuff. And Back to the Future it holds up. It's a power of cinema type film. You should see it. Check it out if you haven't. Where are you? Are you dead, man? Are you a ghost?
Right?
I'm just saying. But
Yeah. It's power of cinema and power of love.
indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
So,
Also, one of my favorite bands, Newfound Glory,
mhm.
does a wonderful cover of Power of Love.
Well, there you
And they
go.
have a music video.
Mm,
Uh, and they've been like off label for like 10 or 12 years. So they do really fun, low budget independent music videos. And
mhm.
this one is basically just reenacting scenes from the movie on a super low budget. Great video. Super fun if you're interested.
That's awesome. NFG, baby.
Woo!
Um, Jesse, always a pleasure to have you, man. I don't want to
Always a
keep
pleasure
you
to
up.
be here.
I don't want to keep you up too late because I know we can talk for days. But um, this episode is coming out. I think this will come out around the first week of April, so around spring break. But I was a guest on your show. You've been very gracious to have me on. So, where can people check you out?
Oh, buddy. So myself personally, it's twitch.tv/cromulent Jesse. It's spelled just how it sounds, cromulent. And then the podcast Ryan talked about is you can find us at serialchillerspod.com. That will direct you in all directions on where to find us, where we are located, where to look for us. All ways to point to us are there. Any way you want to find us, listen to us, see us, serialchillerspod.com.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, buddy.
You should check it out because I don't really talk so much about serial killers anymore, but I do know a few things. And I've enjoyed discussing with Jesse about these creepy fucks.
Yeah,
They
it's
are
been a
creepy.
pleasure to have you and talk about these fuck faces.
Totally.
No redemption.
None. If you like the show, check him out because he'll be on again. If I have my druthers as much as possible. I love having him. Jesse's great. His show's great. His content's great. He's a great guy. He's
Flushing over here.
he deals with me always having to reschedule because of dad duties and likewise. Um But if you like this show, check out Zan's Easy Podcast on YouTube. Check us out on wherever you listen to podcasts, rate and review. I would love to shout out anybody's reviews in the future. Also, yeah, tell a friend. Tell your Grammy.
Zenzizi, Zanbibi.
Exactly. And she'll be like, what the fuck? Is that some sort of weird new disease from China? Shut up, Grandma.
And
Uh,
then when she says that, you say, baby, you make me wish I had 3 hands.
deep cut, deep cut. All right. Well, you rule. Everyone be nice to your grandma, and we'll see you next week. Have a great one, folks. All right. All right.
Fantastic, dude.
Fantastic.